the Atlantic City Blackjacks, who had a pretty exciting season, but it was a surprisingly good draw at the box office. I know there were a lot of people that were skeptical of how well this would do. They were doing pretty well, and I know for a pretty good fact that they were doing well ticket sales-wise for next season. They were already ahead of the pace that they had from last year.
Yeah.
They were doing well with corporate sales, but they might not be back. And let's find out why. The commissioner of the Arena Football League, Randall Boe, he joins us now on the Boardwalk Honda hotline, as this was a big surprise to many people, Mr. Boe, and we appreciate you giving us a couple minutes of your time. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thanks for asking. So, it has been, to just give you some background, I was in Monumental Sports, the Wizards, the Capitals, the Capital One Arena, when we bought into the Arena Football League in 2016. And at the time, it had 10 teams. By the time we got to 2018, there were only 4 teams left, and we played that year to keep it alive. But then we took a look and said, all right, we need to find a way to expand the league rapidly, because the only way we can, become viable financially is to have national scale. So that's when you can start selling national sponsorships. You can get, real money from media distribution. Having, 6 teams in local markets, as we did last year, our plan was to grow that incrementally by 2 to 4 teams a year. But even that, we think to get to scale, you'd have to play, have to be in 12 markets. So that's 3 years away. So we had been out in the market looking for 3 years of capital to get us to that point, and we weren't able to find it. So that is what has precipitated the current situation. I mean, the thing that really made it clear that we were going to have to look pretty urgently at alternatives was being sued last week by a workers' comp carrier who had covered the league back between 2009 and 2012. And even though the owners back then agreed to pay, they never did. So that has come back to haunt us, and it really forced our hand.
So would there be a potential of ceasing operations without the lawsuit, or did that really force it? Because it sounded like you were mentioning that you didn't have as much money as you would hope to move forward from where you started.
Right. We were evaluating alternatives, but the lawsuit really, made it, kind of forced the issue with us. So, it's something that we have to deal with now as opposed to down the road. And we're just not in a position financially to deal with it now.
So essentially, in kind of layman's terms for the listeners out there, what does that mean for, football in Atlantic City? Because it sounds like you guys are like, well, we're not going to, make any statement. We're going to fight. But, I mean, realistically, do you see a scenario where these teams are running locally in 2020?
I don't know yet. We made the hard decision we did yesterday. Over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be making the decision about, whether there is some way to keep the league going or whether we need to cease operations. And that's a decision that's going to get made in the next couple of weeks. I don't know what that decision is going to be yet. We're still working on it.
How was the format, for the league last year, Randall? And if you're going to be able to keep it alive, is that a format that you guys deemed to be successful? Because it seemed like, I was at every home game for the Atlantic City Blackjacks. Boardwalk Hall was jumping. The entire area really took to it. And at least here it was doing well. And I know a couple other areas were doing really well as well. So was that the format and the formula for success?
Well, I think that the game is fantastic. And, I think it's a really fun, engaging, compelling game. And, I think when we get people to watch it in person, it's a little bit like hockey. It's one thing to watch it on TV, and that's great, but the in-person experience is even better. So I think every time we can get someone to a game, it's a positive for us, obviously. And we had a lot of enthusiasm in Atlantic City and Columbus, which were our 2 new markets this year. I think in Atlantic City, it took us a little bit of time to figure out, it's a different market than a lot of our other markets, right? And so we started looking at it as, as opposed to being focused on selling season tickets to the kind of residents, we needed to focus on, establishing relationships with the casinos and getting promoted that way, and make our games kind of more of events, because we had a lot of success. And, like we played a July 4th game there, Philly against Atlantic City. That was a big success. Yeah. It was fun. Everyone was down there for, 4th of July weekend. It was a fun thing to do. You had a lot of Philly folks. So so we were looking to do more of that. And frankly, if there is a way forward, it probably involves having the league, go to more of a touring model, so that, as opposed to being based in a particular city, we would have, we'd play 4 games a year in Las Vegas. We'd play a bunch of games in Atlantic City. We'd go to that kind of a format, which, we think might generate national interest faster than establishing, a local operation, hiring, 20 people in every market, and building it that way. We think this could be much faster.
Yeah, Randall, that's actually something I was going to get to with you next, because I did see that in one of the articles I read, I believe from the Albany newspapers, where I first read about the news, and that was mentioned, and I thought that was interesting. So if you can elaborate a little bit on that, and if you, as much as you can say, I know you can't, get into certain things into too much detail, but I guess the best case and worst case scenario for the league, like, can you do a traveling league in 2 years and take 1 year off? Can you do a traveling league next year and get back into it the following? Just some, best case, worst case, and a little bit more on the traveling.
Well, I think you just summarized it really very well. We've been looking at this. We've only been looking at it for a couple of weeks, so we've been doing a lot of analysis around it and trying to figure out, so how would it work? We look at the Premier Lacrosse League, who adopted this format, and I think had a really good first year. So that to me suggests that it would work. And I guess I'd go back to this. We have a fantastic game. It's the most football is the most popular sport in America, and we have a really exciting version of it. So to me, I refuse to believe that this isn't a really good idea. That's an awkward sentence, but I'm a true believer.
Let me. This might be a tough question, to answer, but we're talking with the Arena Football League Commissioner Randall Boe here. The league is ceasing operations for the time being, trying to restructure things. How far out was this a possibility? Because to my understanding, the guy in Atlantic City was just placed here. I had lunch with the guy Tuesday, and he emailed me yesterday, like, hey, by the way, I don't know if you heard, but, was this something that was a possibility before guys like that got put into place?
Well, what we were doing this year, when we made the decision to play this season and to expand, and the team in Atlantic City was also, owned and operated by the league. We put the money up for that. So it wasn't like we took someone else's money. That was our own investment. But we went out and we raised money from Monumental Sports and from Trifecta. And we knew that we had enough money to get us, allow us to put on an entire season. And then we were out in the capital markets working with an investment banker to try to find investors, because we knew we needed to find third-party capital to pursue the more incremental local market approach.
Yeah, it just seems like to bring in new teams and not have the definite knowledge that you're going to be, because I could have, was it not a 3-year deal with Boardwalk Hall? Are you aware of that?
Yeah. We obviously will have to deal with if we end up having to suspend operations, we obviously will have to deal with situations like that and obligations that that the league has incurred. So we understand that.
Yeah. Well, moving forward, this traveling situation. So what does that mean for a place like Atlantic City? Is this hey, don't expect football in 2020, or hey, maybe 2021 we'll get back to you, or you would be one of the, we're going to keep the cities that are currently in play as places on this traveling tour? Is Atlantic City a place that still can have hope that football would be back here?
So that's a whole lot of questions. So let's see how I do. All right, tell me if I missed any of those. So, in a perfect world, if I had my choice, knowing that we have to shift to the touring model, I would absolutely want to keep all 6 teams that we have right now. And what we would probably do is locate them in regional centers, so that we would, have 2 teams practicing and living together, this place, and this place, because we think that would save money and be a more efficient way to do it. And then in each of those 6 markets, Columbus, Atlantic City, Albany, Philly, DC, Baltimore, we would play 2 home games in each of or wherever we would be playing. But we would play 2, quote, home games, and then the rest of the schedule would be on a touring basis. So maybe we'd play 4 games in Las Vegas, and we'd go and play a weekend of games in Chicago or Dallas or Austin. We would hit a lot of cities, and I think the idea is to create a national audience quickly, more quickly than if we have to wait 2 years and then put a team in Nashville, and then wait 2 more years and put a team in Oklahoma City or Denver. That's a much more incremental approach. The touring approach, we think, is more efficient, less expensive, and potentially faster.
What is, Randall, your message right now for your coaches, your players, your teams, executives, and things like that? Because it sounds like there's a limbo here where you have to stop things, but it's that may not be permanent, and there's glimmer of hope here. So what do the personnel and employees do for the moment?
Well, it's obviously a very difficult situation for a lot of people. So, yesterday was difficult. We had to, tell the folks who worked in our local business units that we were going to have to close those offices. So those were, that's difficult news for people to handle, and that affects all of us. What we've told the coaches and the players union is, here's our situation. We've been pretty candid about what the situation is. We've been very open about what we think is, a way forward. We know that it is very much a long shot that we would be able to pull anything off, but that we're going to continue trying, but that also has a very short fuse. And we're going to have to make a decision in a couple of weeks about whether there is a path forward or whether we need to suspend operations.
All right, Randall Boe is the commissioner of the Arena Football League. He has been since March of 2018, and I guess I'll leave you with this, because a lot of people were excited for the league and what was happening here in Atlantic City, which, by the way, I've been here a long time. A lot of things have gone in that building. A lot of teams have been here. And I was pleasantly surprised, and maybe you guys know more about, they didn't do as well as we thought they would, but believe me, they did better than everybody else who had been in that building and any other team who had been here. So I was pleasantly surprised. The reports that I had been getting were that they had some ticket sales were above where they were a year ago, and that they had some good sales coming in for next year. So I guess in closing, do you anticipate football being in Atlantic City in any form next season? In the Arena League?
I sure hope there is, and we're doing everything we can to see if we can do that.
All right, Commissioner Randall Boe, we appreciate you coming on such short notice.
Okay, thank you for having me. Pleasure to talk to you.
All right,
Thanks,
and he appeared to be the Boardwalk Honda hotline, and this came down yesterday, so Ryan, good job getting him on.